Well, so once again, thank you all for being here today. We're excited to welcome our first guest, or our guest for today, our athletic director, Curtis Hammeke. Now, I asked him before we get into the real news of the day, I asked him to tell us a little bit about himself. I'm sure you guys all know that he was a baseball player here at Fort Hays State. So I would like to hear a little bit about what brought him to Fort Hays, what that experience was like, and kind of like his Fort Hays story. We never get a chance to hear that from Curtis. So Curtis, share that with us if you would.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you all. Yeah, a little wave. See Doc Steno on there. I hope you're feeling well, Doc. Hope you're coming along well. Thumbs up. Good to hear. Okay. Well, glad you all could join us today, and we're glad to be on here. I know there's a lot going on for everybody, so I appreciate you taking the time. Real quickly, not to bore you to death, obviously, about me, but yeah, I came here in the early 80s. I went to Barton County Community College, played baseball, and came here after that and played here for 2 years. Vern Hendricks was the coach back then, if any of you remember him. And so I finished here playing, and then I got back down to Barton County, where I was an assistant baseball coach there in the late 80s. Right as I did that, I married my lovely wife, Annette, and so we moved to Great Bend, Kansas, and I was coach there for about 5 years. And then I came back to Fort Hays as the baseball coach here in 91. And I was here through about 96. And while I was doing that, I was working on administrative staff with Tom Spicer. And what that really meant was I was running the concessions and popping popcorn and selling hot dogs. But we called that an assistant AD, so I got away with that, see. And then I moved into administration there after the 96 school year. I took a job at Great Bend High School as the athletic director. And I went to Butler County Junior College after that as an athletic director for 5 years. Then I was at Newman University as the athletic director. We were transitioning from NAI to NCAA at that time. And then after that, while I was at Newman, I had a voicemail. We had just moved over there. We lived out in Andale, west of Wichita. And I had a voicemail in my office one day from Tom Spicer. He said that he was leaving and going to Colorado Mines, and that he thought that I should apply for the Fort Hays job. And of course, we had just moved our kids. It was tough timing right then. That was back in 04, actually. And so we went through that, and Dr. Hammond jumped on a plane and said he was going to come pick me up in Wichita and bring me to Hays. And I said, can you bring a little bit bigger one so I can bring my kids? And he said, yeah. And so that we came to Hays and ended up choosing to come here in 04. So we've been here ever since. So that was my third time to Fort Hays. Came here as a student, left, came back here as a coach, left for about 8 years, and came back here as athletic director. So, yeah, I haven't been able to shake Hays off my feet. It's been a lot of years in Hays America. So that was my history, and that's where we are today. So now we're in these squirrely times trying to figure out how to move forward. So that was my history to this point in time, Charlene, if you have any question about that.
So what position did you play?
I was a pitcher.
And do you still do any of that?
Yeah, no, I did quite a bit of that while my kids were growing up. I was just remarking the other day how I think my shoulders are shot. They're toast.
That happens to the best of us, I'm afraid.
Wore out the sockets. Yeah, pretty much done.
All right. So I'm sure that we have almost 50 people on this call today because they wanted to know more about you, but also because we know that there are some changes. There were some big meetings with the MIAA yesterday in terms of how the conference is moving forward with sports scheduling, and I think everyone would like to hear from you.
Yeah.
You know, what the reason is behind that, and you know how we're moving forward.
Well, first of all, I don't know if any of us can make much sense of what the reasoning is behind it, but there is some thought process to it anyway. So I'll start with what the NCAA was doing. So when this all transpired last spring, I mean, shoot, I was on my way to Warrensburg to watch our women's basketball team play in the regionals, and everything started snowballing. I didn't even make it all the way there before it was all canceled, and headed back home. So, one of the challenging things about this has been once that all happened, we lost all of the remainder of our spring seasons. We had wrestlers about ready to wrestle, had a chance for national championships, and so that was pretty difficult on our kids, and our coaches. But we also have to keep in mind that during the entire process, there was a bigger picture going on. There was health issues involved and all that. So, despite the hardships and the uncertainties of all that, it was something that we realized was pretty serious, and so that all happened. And so then, as we got into the summer, and everything else got canceled for the spring, the NCAA and different governing bodies of the NCAA started discussing, what this was going to look like next year. And obviously some financial hardships were going to take place, just for a number of reasons, obvious reasons, but for a number of reasons, we were concerned about what it was going to look like financially for the coming school year. So they thought they would take the wheel, so to speak, and reduce schedules at the Division II level as a whole, so that some schools weren't doing it, some conferences were doing this and this. So to keep it uniform, at a national level, they invoked some cuts for all of us from our existing schedules. Now, primarily what that ended up being is our non-conference schedules pretty much went away. But if I went down the line, I'd start with football, for example. The NCAA's allowed 11 games. They cut that to 10. Well, the adverse reaction to that was it made them redraw our schedules. And so it changed our football schedule completely, which is about to come out, I think, later this afternoon. They're going to release that. But so football went from 11 to 10. Men's and women's basketball is another one of interest that went down to 22. Well, this year we've got a 22-game conference schedule, so there's no non-conference games. So it took away. Basketball traditionally has 26 games, and they could have as many as 28 when they have these exempted tournaments that they play in at the beginning. So they really went from 28 to 22, but it took away their non-conference schedule. And when I say that, I think it's important to explain that they still get their exempted games, such as going to UConn, for example, for the women. Those are non-countable games, those ones that don't count on their record. So they'll still play 2 or 3 of those type of games in addition to their 22-game conference schedule. But volleyball went from, I think, 26 to 20. But each sport, baseball went from 50 to 40. Softball went from 56 to 44. All these cuts were made across the board. There is some savings there, I think, when you eliminate some of your non-conference travel, but you have to look at it school by school. For example, we were hosting some basketball tournaments here this year, so not a huge savings for us. We had 11 football games, right? And this was the year that we had 6 home football games. So by cutting one, we lost a home game, not an away game. So did we actually experience any savings there? No, we didn't. So, but they had to do what was best for everybody, and so some people if we'd have been on the other side of that coin, it'd have benefited us more than it did, but it's not going to in that regard. The other thing I worry about financially from that piece is, what kind of restrictions are we going to be facing in terms of capacity at our games in the fall to where we start losing. We generate probably $500,000 a year in ticket sales and concessions. Okay. How much of that's going to still be there? And that's basketball and football is what I'm talking about. So we're going to lose some revenue there probably as well. Student fees are a big part of what our operational budget pertaining to scholarships is. And those kids have to be on campus to pay those student fees for athletics. And that's a big chunk of change to our scholarship program every year, actually close to $1 million. So if there's less students on campus physically, that's probably going to have an impact on our scholarship budget. So there's a lot to figure out still moving forward, but that was the rationale nationally by the NCAA to cut those back. What we've been working on since then is additional cuts, like for the conference tournaments, and trying to get consensus among MIAA athletic directors in what size our conference tournaments should be. Has been kind of like herding cats, I guess. We have not found consensus on that thought process because, and I understand, we all understand each other's points of view, but on one hand, you're wanting to reduce the conference tournaments for cost savings. Say basketball, for example, takes 10 teams to Kansas City. There are those that said, let's just take 4 this year. There are those that said, let's just eliminate the conference tournaments completely. There's those that wanted to keep more, so there's the side of budget, and then there's the other side that made things murky was thinking about the kids and their experiences. Okay. So, and then you get around to the spring where your baseball team, your softball team, your track, these guys all lost their spring completely. How much do you want to eliminate their season again this spring already, from their conference tournaments? But on the other shoulder, you're saying, yeah, but budget's going to be an issue here. So you can see both sides of it. And I remember one of those years when I was first coaching baseball back in the early 90s. It was my first time as a head coach, and we're taking off on the road and we get ready to stop. And I think and then those times you drove your own bus and everything, right? So you're driving the bus and you say, hey, where do you guys want to eat? How many times do you think I did that?
Probably
Once.
a lot.
That was the last time I ever did that. So from then on, we just decided ahead of time where we were going to eat. But that's kind of what this whole process reminded me of, is trying to build a consensus on taking the tournament to a smaller number or going ahead and giving our kids as much opportunity as possible. So in my mind, I wanted to still protect our kids as much as I possibly could. So that's the way we were voting on these things. That's going to come out soon too, but I'll give you a couple examples. Basketball tournament in Kansas City. We knew it was very, very important to protect our tournament in Kansas City. So we wanted to keep it there. We're going to go from 10 teams to 8 teams this year, which is still pretty dang good, and we'll still be there 4 days. So that's what basketball is going to do as an example. Volleyball is going to go from 8 teams making it to their tournament down to 6. Tried to protect the spring a little bit, like I mentioned. So baseball and softball are both still going to play tournaments. Baseball's tournament was supposed to be over 2 weekends. It'll be reduced to 1, for example, but they're still going to get 8 teams in and play a double elimination tournament. And I think part of that is because they lost their total springs, last year. So, or most of it, their postseason anyway. So those are the kind of things that we were just really beat to death over the recent weeks trying to come up with solutions to that. But that's all been resolved as of yesterday, and we'll start releasing those schedules throughout this week. And so I just got a text, I think, or an email from Chris Brown. So do you have the schedule yet? And I do, but I'm on a Zoom right now, Chris. So he should have got on here and I could have told him.
He's been the topic of one of these before. You would think he would know to come join us.
So one of our big issues was the football schedule. If I didn't already say this, was homecoming. And so when they went in there and did it, our homecoming was set for October 3rd. And we had Kearney. And that's, of course, they redrew this schedule. So they were able to protect our homecoming date, but we won't be playing Kearney anymore. Now we'll be playing Central Missouri.
Ooh.
And so that's okay. We flip-flopped our schedule, a couple of things, like our first game of the year was going to be Northwest Missouri, which was going to be really cool. But now we're starting a week later, and so we're going to have Lincoln here, and then we'll go to Northwest and Mo West. So we'll have Central Missouri at home, Washburn at home, Northeastern State at home, and Emporia State at home. And so,
did I just hear you say that we have to go to Northwest again?
Got to go back to Northwest again. That's right. So that's the hazards of redrawing that schedule, that's kind of frustrating. But a whole lot of this whole process has been kind of frustrating, I guess, just with all the uncertainties surrounding it and the inability to make decisions. As you're shooting with information, and every decision you make seems to have an asterisk behind it. So that's kind of what we're dealing with, but we're moving forward and still optimistic right now that sports are going to happen this fall, and we're working on that. And like I said, we just got a schedule, so we're planning on it.
Well, our office is glad to know that homecoming dates will remain the same, so we can start really moving forward on all of that stuff too, for sure.
Yeah. Any questions?
I'm sure there will be some questions, but I've got a question for you.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
How do we go forward in terms of knowing how many people you can have at games? I mean, how is that process going to work?
Well, that's going to keep changing. So we're going to have to break up different scenarios for what that's going to look like. So, for example, we might have, the whole 6-foot distancing thing by groups, where families can still sit together and then spread them out and have to go every other bleacher or every other set of seats. We might have a percentage of the capacity available to where we might have to do, say, 3,000 people. We might have to prioritize and go, okay, well, who can we let in? So we might have to do season ticket holders first, maybe X amount of students, and then see what we have room for after that. But it's just going to depend as we get closer, Charlene, what that percentage is. So we're going to have to make scenarios for all that. Our tickets will, I don't know if we'll have them on our ticket stock, but there'll be statements made, basically to the inherent risks, I guess, of associated with attending an event, liability type things at the gates, and say, if you want to come in, we'd love to have you, but understand that there's, you're doing so, I guess, at your own risk, so to speak. So, I was talking to Matt Cook the other day, and he said he went out to the races, I think Saturday night, and it was packed. So here in town, but everybody's viewing this whole deal differently. You talk to two different people, and some are pretty dang alarmed and being very careful as we should be. Others are throwing caution to the wind and not as concerned about it and thinking that they're bulletproof. So we don't know which way is right. I don't. We know we hear a different opinion every day. So we've brought our football kids back this summer. We went round and round about that, whether we're going to do that and how to do that. And so June 1st, we've got about 70 kids right now lifting 4 days a week. We're in our 3rd week of that. We've got a very strict protocol involved with that. So they come at 6 in the morning, and then the next group's at 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're in hour groups. But they come in, they get screened, they get their temperature taken, they got to answer a series of questions, and we screen them every morning before each session. And then, that process, we're in week 3 right now, and we haven't, I'm going to knock on some wood, but we have not had issue to this point in time. And so we feel really good about the way that's been going. We started out with 10 kids lifting at a time and had to have multiple sessions. We're now up to 18 at a time. We've got those 12 stations in there. So we're using 6 weight racks right now, and we're going every other rack. So there's 12 racks in there. We're going every other rack, and there's 3 kids per rack. So that creates our 18 right now. That group is then separated from the rest of them. So there's distance between them. We're disinfecting that. On Wednesdays, we totally disinfect it, but it's getting wiped down between each session. And so far that's moving along pretty well. We really wanted to get that initiated and moving forward so that we could generate some confidence in that we're able to do so or if we ran into a problem, identify it early enough to where we could address it. And because, there's a lot of things that got to get figured out between now and the fall. So far that's worked out well. Our strength and conditioning staff and our athletic training staff has done a nice job over there in getting that up and running.
And I would think that with certain sports, some of this might be, in terms of keeping the athletes safe, might be more challenging. I'm thinking specifically of wrestling, I guess. It's really hard to social distance when you're, wrestling.
That good point. But we're not doing anything with wrestling right now. Right now in the summer, the conditioning is just the weightlifting, and so if we had wrestlers wanted to be involved in the weightlifting, they could be, but we're not opening up the wrestling room.
Okay, very good. So part of the MIAA announcement yesterday was about a change to the MIAA network. And can you explain that?
Not very well, but we do have a different setup there where we're going to have more procedures involved with the MIAA network. So we'll be able to have better broadcasts throughout the conference, so that there'll be some safeguards on that, I guess, as it relates to announcers and things like that. But it's going to be a new program. I don't remember the charges off the top of my head. And Matt's on here, and he might know some of that, but I don't know. I want to say it was $25 a month, maybe. Matt, does that sound right?
Yeah, I don't think I don't know if it's official yet, but yeah, what they had was $25 per month. And I don't know if there'll be a yearly. I don't know if you can pay per year or not, but we do know that $25 a month is what they were thinking.
And I know we've had quite a few people, Doc Steno and the like. I know they've been buying the package every year, and they watch the visiting games on the road and that type of thing, and have some gatherings to watch them, which has been pretty cool. But I think all that's going to improve a little bit. And, it could be really important this year based on the previous question we were talking about in terms of attendance and what we can do. And so it might become a big deal. And that's something we'll certainly promote more as the summer moves on, as we have a better picture moving forward in terms of that. But might be a great avenue for watching games if we're unable to get as many people in the stands as we want to. And I hope that's not what we fall back to, but at least we have something there if we do. And it's a way that we'd still be able to watch the Tigers play.
Sounds good. So I mentioned wrestling a second ago. Yeah. Where are we with the coaching search?
Well, we've actually been doing some screening on that. We've talked to a few candidates, and it's ongoing. So we've started interviewing a few people and looking at some different candidates there. So we should know that. I think in the coming weeks here, we'll make some decisions related to that. But it's really awkward. We can't haven't been able to bring anybody on campus right now. So we're even doing that through the Zoom. We are Zoom experts. And, but I tell you, that's one area where, I'd like to be able to bring them to campus and visit with them and see them interact in some different scenarios, take them out to eat, see if they chew with their mouth open and all that kind of stuff. But we would like to figure a few other things out. I think maybe if we are able to stall until July, we might be able to do a little bit more of that. But I also don't want to put some other institution in a predicament by hiring too late. When you hire somebody, you're taking one from somewhere else. So we don't want to drag that on too long, but it's going pretty well so far.
Right. You don't want to be in a situation. You don't want to put someone else in the situation we were in a couple of years ago with volleyball, for example.
No, we've been on the receiving end of some of those situations, but that doesn't mean we want to put somebody else in that situation.
Right. So I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions, feel free to chat them to us, or again, we'll have an opportunity here in just a bit to try to take some live questions. One more question that I have here on the chat, though, is what's the status of the Tiger auction?
Yeah, good question. And another one, that we've really been wrestling with because there's a lot of pros and cons to it, and we know we need to do it. We know we need to try to do something. We need to be cautious and respect our people, and so we've gone back and forth with some different ideas, but I think we're gravitating right now towards probably doing it online. I think Matt's going to we're going to try to pull our auction committee back together tomorrow. We've tried so many different ideas, discussed so many different things, and gone back and forth so much that, and I know most of you are dealing with these things too, where the biggest challenge with stuff is getting some decisions made, and you keep going back and forth and revisiting, but and we were discussing it yesterday, and I think maybe the safest and most prudent answer right now is to look at doing it online. It may or may not be as successful. We obviously can't prove that without trying it, but it would be, if we go the other route, we're going to have an asterisk behind it. And I think we're kind of getting to the point where we'd like to make a decision. So I don't want to say that in concrete right now necessarily till after we talk to our committee one more time, but that's kind of the way we're leaning. I'm going to see if Matt wants to say anything else about that.
No, I mean, we've obviously been in a lot of discussions, and our committee helps us out a lot with the auction. So we are going to try to talk with them tomorrow and solidify things, but we're getting a little bit late in the game and we need to get something going. So we've seen some pretty cool things online on the line that other schools have done. And so we'll figure out a combination of having it online and doing some fun things, maybe on Zoom with people like this, and getting a big group of people together on Zoom. So it's kind of where we're at. It'll be different, that's for sure, but we'll just do the best we can with it.
I see it a little bit like Tiger Club in the summer here. We were talking about that, and we want to get together with our people and this and that. And I know what I don't want to do is put people in a position where they feel obligated, and we don't know what the landscape's going to look like in August, if this is going to be quite a bit settled down or if it's going to be worse. We just don't know. And again, it's that uncertainty. So starting to feel like it'd be nice if we had a decision made and could start rolling with some plans, and knowing that at least if we go online, that's going to happen, right? If we go the other direction, we don't know how much adjustment we're going to have to make at that point later on. And so many of our people are such good supporters that I wouldn't want them coming when they were a little bit uncomfortable coming, but felt kind of obligated or, felt like they needed to. And that's a wrong position to put people in too. So we're trying to think all that through and weigh it out. But that's the direction we're thinking and leaning towards at this moment anyway.
Okay.
But we change every day.
I feel your pain, Curtis. I really do. So that is all the questions I have in the chat. Do others have questions out there? I guess just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them.
I covered it.
So the follow-up question on the auction is, if it's online, will it still be the same date?
I think so. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to try to keep the same date, and then but maybe lead up to it a little bit, huh, Matt, with some silent items or something.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about doing it online or mobile is that we can do it for a month, or we can do it for a couple of weeks. We can leave it up and open, and anybody anywhere can get on and bid on the item. So it'll probably be open for a longer period of time, but could end on August 22nd or maybe a little bit after that. So it'll be a little bit different in that way.
So, the obvious challenge with that is some of you might have to get together so you can drink a little bit, because you're going to want to have something. If you're going to get loose to bid on stuff or contribute, you're just going to have to do that in your own spots. I know is Bickle on here. I know he's going to have some of that scotch down there in the basement. Is Bickle on this call?
I believe
I got to switch pages here and see if I can see him.
His name is on there.
Oh, he's on mute. Well, what if we could mute him in real life?
Who would want to do that, Curtis?
What if we got back to real life and we could just push the mute button once in a while? You guys could shut me up right now.
All right. We don't want to mute anyone on this call, Curtis, except in general, just so that we don't hear background noise, because everyone wants to be able to hear you.
Right.
So do we have any other questions? I can't believe it.
For this group too, I will say, first of all, again, I want to tell everybody thank you for hanging in with us. And we're not purposely delaying sending out information about season tickets and stuff. We're doing that. I mean, because we have to. I mean, because until we know more, we don't want to get into a big scenario where we're trying to refund and all that. So we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row, and then we'll be in contact with everybody soon. We don't know what a lot of things are going to look like yet in the fall, but stay tuned, and we're plugging away and trying to get ready to go as much as normal as we possibly can.
All right. Oh,
okay.
There are a couple more questions coming in. Will we be able to tailgate at football?
That hasn't been eliminated. So right now I would say yes, and might have to, there might be rules involved with that. I don't know what they're going to look like, but today I'm saying yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm asking if you would please just not for sure. Are you sure that you can't share the whole football schedule with us, even though it's a little early, since we're such a special group?
I can read it to you. You want me to read it to you?
Yes.
I thought I did already.
Well, I thought you did too, but I don't know that everyone was listening.
If anybody wants to write it down, it should get released this afternoon to the media, I think. So September 12th, we're going to play Lincoln here. The 19th, we are at Northwest Missouri. The 26th, we are at Missouri Western. Then we're going to be home for 2 in a row. October 3rd for homecoming will be Central Missouri. October 10th, we'll be home against Washburn. The 17th, we will be at Pittsburgh State. October 24th, we have Northeastern State, Oklahoma here. We are at Central Oklahoma on Halloween. We will have Emporia State here on November 7th. And at Kearney on November 14th.
And so then the playoffs would start shortly thereafter?
Yep, the week after that.
Okay.
The one thing you'll notice with that schedule, there's no Thursday night games. That's all Saturday dates this year.
And we start well after Labor Day.
Our first home game, there's September 12th.
Okay. All right. Oh, and okay, so the other question is afternoon or evening. So will you follow the September games, in the evening?
So normally we've played all of our September games at night. So Lincoln would be at night. And then we go clear to homecoming, which unless the conference imposes a rule where we can't, we would probably play at night. We've been doing homecoming at night on the 3rd. And then the 10th is Washburn. I would say that would probably be at night. And then probably starting on October 24th and November 7th, those would probably be afternoon games, would be my guess.
Okay. All right. Any last questions? I know we've kept you guys a little longer than 30 minutes. If not.
Curtis, we should have brought Coach Brown on this to tell him the schedule live in front of everybody else so we could get his reaction.
It's probably a good thing we didn't.
Does he know we have to go to Northwest again?
Not unless he's on this call, probably. Yeah. He'll deal with it. It's one of those, it's one of those deals you can't control. So I guess here we go.
Here we go. All right. So Curtis and Matt too, I want to thank you all for joining us. Next week's Tiger Tuesday will be with Dr. Paul Adams, who of course is the Dean of the College of Education. Following week will be with another education faculty member, the ever popular Beth Walliser. So certainly we would love to see you all come join us for those as well. And again, thank you, Curtis and everyone. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, guys.